I think. Yeah. What's up, man?
Oh, I see an eyeball. I don't see anybody on yet, but I do see an
You see the
eye.
zero eyeball?
See,
Zero eyeball.
see a zero. It's like one eye. So, how you doing, man?
Good. Good. Yeah, I was gonna say we for those that are watching, we have it's been a little while since we did one of these, but we just got done doing a uh, one. We just got done recording a video and then wanted to just jump on here live, see if anybody's there to talk
Yeah,
about one other kind of like hot topic in
yeah.
the shoe
The shoe
industry. Is it the
world,
shoe industry or just like the shoe community?
the shoe community, the shoe hobby, shoe industry. I think is probably too big for what we do. So, so
Yeah.
I might have you entertain our guest for a moment while we do this.
Yeah, no, we can jump right
No,
in.
we're good. We're good. We'll go on for a few minutes, and then my dog is freaking out, but that's okay. See, my dog is freaking out because Chao Torres or Caio Torres sold a pair of shoes that was disingenuously marketed. Let's put it that way. So,
Yeah, so what's and I'll put the link in the video here to your YouTube video, but what's the
yeah,
yeah, what's
what's the
the
deal?
story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I reached out. I heard about this guy, Chao Torres or Caio Torres. I'm not sure which how you actually pronounce his name, but he's this Brazilian shoemaker that kind of caught a fire. I don't know, about a year ago or so, or maybe not quite a year ago, where he was being featured on like Justin Fitzpatrick's blog. John Schmeelk, Wee Shoe Guy, was talking a lot about wanting to get a pair of his things, and there were a few other people who were out there talking about it on Facebook and others. And so I reached out to the guy because I'd heard he was like kind of the up and coming guy and to kind of get a pair before he totally blew up. And so I reached out and, sent him a few pictures of like welted shoes. My name is Welted Wear. And, he put together he put together two pairs of shoes. This is one of them, which is a spiral hole cut, which is actually kind of a cool cut. It's a single piece of leather created to make the upper, so you can kind of see it starts at the facing here over here, and then it basically wraps all the way around the shoe, kind of like this, and all the way around. So it's one piece of leather, a little like I think Antonio Macario calls it like an orange peel, like it spirals. There is one little thing where it has a little butt stitch on the back there, but overall, a nicely designed upper. But I was assuming that the shoe I was going to get was going to be a welted shoe, and there were several pieces of information. There was no channel cut into the sole that I could tell. That raised some concern. And then when I looked at the fudging, I did not see any outsole stitching at all. And then I proceeded to take out the shoe and look inside, and there was no evidence of any sort of welt, stitch, or anything. It looked like the shoe had basically been
Been
cemented together. And so this is a cemented shoe. For anybody who's interested, this is a cemented shoe, just like you would get at Goodwill, or Payless shoe store, show
I thought you were gonna
source,
say PayPal. But yeah, so I mean like
PayPal,
the
eBay.
and
Yeah,
let me pause this before it blows up our ears here. But so this is the video and I'll drop that in there. But
yeah.
um so yeah, so like what I guess trying to figure out not like whose fault is it because obviously I
Yeah,
think like there's a
honestly,
clear like fault. Um, the clear like fault
nobody's
is
at
just kind of
fault.
the
The
lack of
process.
clarification or lack of transparency about the process. But um,
Yeah,
like where does like obviously you still have the shoes and
yeah.
the
I'm
shoes have
I'm
some
sort of.
value, but like what?
Yeah, I mean, from to give the guy credit, he did a nice job making a pretty looking like a nicely cut upper. It's a nice pattern. It looks to me. I enjoy the way it looks. I don't know if I want to sell it to anybody knowing
Yeah,
for what it is, unless I'm transparent about it being a cemented shoe, which is if somebody doesn't care, great.
yeah,
But it was marketed to me as a bespoke shoe where I sent him my measurements and really made to measure shoe. So I sent him my measurements and he took a stock last and he modified it, supposedly. But the shoe actually is probably a half to a full size too big. Like I have to lace it. There's no like V or anything. I have to lace it fully tight, and then he gives you like two or three like pairs of insoles in case the fit isn't good. So it suggests that he's actually kind of like not really fitting it particularly precisely.
That's
Once I
weird.
caught wind that the shoe might, it was in the process of being shipped to me, and I heard from another prominent blogger about that it might be cemented. I started looking a little bit more into it, and I hadn't gotten the shoes yet, and reached out to him, and then it became shady from my perspective. He kept dodging around the construction. He said he would send me videos of the construction. He said it was blind welted. Then he said it was not cemented, and then ultimately, after a lot of haranguing, he said you can call it cemented. That's what it is. And to me, like he put a lot of effort into deceiving. Like I don't know if it's the right word, but like
He
it's
knew.
marketed as this bespoke shoe. He knew it was cemented, but he really didn't want to admit it.
Right, and that's what I was gonna
And to
say.
me,
Is like whether like most shoemakers in this community, I always go back and forth between it's like traditional, or classic, like whatever, like in the welded footwear community, whether it's boots, workwear, dress shoes, whatever. Like most of the shoemakers are very, they proactively promote what it is, especially
yeah,
if it's
yeah,
handmade, especially if it's really
yep,
handmade. The fact that like
mm-hmm.
he doesn't mention it at all except like bespoke, and once you start asking, if they don't like, sometimes it's not clear because they come out and they're talking about, oh well, we do Goodyear welt by hand, or we do this by whatever. Like that's
Yes,
just, a translation thing of like they may think
yeah, like the
the
work you're
welded
using.
part is Goodyear welded, but they stitch it by
You're
hand.
using hands to drive the machine or something
Right,
like
but
that.
like
But
the fact that like this guy wasn't, what
no,
remove this guy from it. Like if you're not very direct in response, like, or you're
yeah,
having trouble articulating what it is,
yeah,
that's the part that is very concerning, or just doesn't,
yeah,
like, it's almost like what's like there's like a criminology like term of like the like consciousness of guilt or something, where it's like he's not wanting
yeah.
to tell you what it is.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like he's hiding behind the fact that it's cemented and trying to make it more than what it is. Even
Yeah,
now, he calls it a proprietary process, and I'm like, no,
it's
it's not.
it's the yeah
It's cemented.
it's
You put the stuff on there and you slap it on, and it's a binder. And like other people, like, well, that'll last longer than the stitching and this and that. I'm like,
it doesn't
that's not the
matter.
point.
It's
It doesn't
the
matter. Like that's
principle
not the point.
of what it was that you
Yeah,
were buying.
and my mistake in all of this was not clarifying it ahead of time. Like I just didn't clarify it ahead of time. And I look back at my messaging, I look back and forth. And so to some degree, he was justified in being upset by me, coming out with the concern about that. But his response was to hide it and hide it again and hide it again.
Which,
And then
yeah,
ultimately use some forceful terminology that was concerning to me. And so at the end of the
that's
day,
bizarre.
yeah, it was very the whole communication once it broke down was very concerning to the point where yeah, I was extremely um, concerned by his approach to his business. It was
Yeah,
almost not it was not healthy. I'll leave it at that.
yeah, and so like,
And
and I was just saying, I know like we probably have to like,
that pair
uh
looks like it's got an outsole stitch, I believe, or
that
maybe is it that
yeah,
one? There's another one that has, yeah,
yeah. So
and
this
that
that's
was one
why
of
I
the
clicked
pairs
on
that
this one.
and that was the link that was the picture that I shared with him of like the style of construction I liked, and it looks like it's got an outsole stitch.
Yeah. So
So,
yeah. So
and I
let
shared
me.
that exact image with him. So,
I was
to
gonna say,
me, like
yeah,
I don't know if that's a justification, but I sent him that picture. He, for whatever it's worth, acknowledged or didn't acknowledge it. So, I don't want to make it was my mistake at some level, but I also want to make sure that most of the people in our community prefer shoes that are in some manner welted, either hand welted or Goodyear welted, and that's not what this is. So,
right. And so like this is why I was bringing. Hey, Antonio. Um, yeah. So that's why I was bringing this picture up because this you can very clearly see this is distinctly different than let's pull up one of I don't know. Is this is close I think to one of yours if it's not one of
Yep,
them.
yep, yep.
So
There's
like
one
you
right there.
it's very distinctly different right here.
Yep.
And you
It's
can
got a
tell that
very hard fudge. You
yeah,
can see the fudge ridge, but if you
the
look closely enough, and this is something, you get lost in the romanticism of it or whatever, but if you look close enough, there is no outsole stitch. And you could say, well, maybe it was cut and buried and hidden, but
no.
there's nothing there.
Yeah, and
Nothing.
this one you this is a
You see it.
machine. This is
Yeah,
machine
that's machine
outsole.
stitch. Yep. Yep. It's a machine stitch outsole.
Yeah,
So,
because the fudging
you
looks
know,
very similar to like TLB, and, which is
yep.
fine. Like, there's no criticism. We're just calling it what the observations are. But yeah, so
Yeah.
like the fact that he does offer it,
Yeah. And he
but
presents it such and sort of presents it no differently than every other
yeah,
pair. To the
like
fact that
he
I shared that image, I shared a couple other images of probably shoes that were cemented, and he chose not to clarify that ahead of time, and charges large amounts of money, $750 a pair or whatever it is,
right,
and that's not in line with what most people would pay in this particular segment for that type of shoe. That at least not for even for a shoe that does a brand behind it. This isn't Gucci or Prada either, where you can get away with
yeah,
pricing.
yeah, and so
So
I guess the best approach would have been if the shoemaker knowingly offers multiple ranges, somebody reaches out and you don't specify, like the shoemaker should specify like what that price is that he's quoting you, like what that's for. And if they don't,
and what you're
like
getting from
right,
totally.
like it's on them as much as it is anybody else if they offer
Yeah.
multiple things, which he clearly does.
And
So
he said after the fact that he did offer Goodyear welting, but it was a $500 upcharge from $750. So it would have been a $1,300 Goodyear welted shoe,
yeah,
more or
that's
less. So to me, that's not in line with any other Goodyear welted
yeah,
shoe, other than maybe Gatiano and Girling or Edward Green, and those are brands that have a name that you're buying as well, and you're not buying that through Chow Torres. You're not, and so I think 750 seems really like a great deal for a hand welted or Goodyear welted spiral hole cut. That's a
yeah,
good deal in my mind, but it's not what that is. So like, and where I made the mistake was in assuming based off of the picture exchange and the communication and the descriptions at hand that was going to be a shoe that involved that process, and it didn't. It just didn't. He's a talented cutter of uppers. His shoes are like they're
yeah,
pretty, they're nice. I'm not saying that. It's just, there is a huge amount of effort put into creating, crafting, and designing a sole and assembling that part of the shoe, and that part is entirely skipped. So he can process shoes much quicker because all he has to do is cut an upper, last it, and slap a sole on it
yeah,
and glue it on there.
yeah.
And so to me, that's not justifiable.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's just
like
not.
and then we can, I'll kind of give a little teaser about the other topic that we were talking about, but it is similar to the Alden comparison where everyone
Sure
kind of
is.
took that as someone's like breaking down Alden and saying Alden's awful or bad quality. It's not necessarily apples
It's
to
not
apples
awful.
here, but it's just kind of calling like balls and strikes. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily kind of
call it what it
looking at
is.
an
Call it what
opinion.
it
That's what it is, and that's
is.
kind of what happened here. Not kind of, it
Yeah,
is what happened here. Is that there was a just completely different representation of what was and wasn't being made, and where the
yeah,
value is that's coming from it. Whereas this guy sees like an ultra high premium just for his upper work, and
yeah.
you're thinking that is the value for an entirely like handmade
Yeah,
shoe, and he's making the upper. The other part is, a
yeah,
$150 kind of shoe construction method, which is doesn't
yeah.
doesn't devalue his
To
his
me, that's
skill.
not value. Maybe
Right,
it
but it
is for
doesn't
him.
it doesn't make his skill any like less skillful. It's just that he's
No,
making something that's completely different than what he's selling
what
to
he's
people.
representing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way he's representing it, the way he presented it to me, the way he talked about the process. was not in line with the
And
shoe that I
even
received.
yeah, even with John's, like I thought when you had
Yeah,
talked to John, like there was definitely a bit of um I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to put words in his mouth or your mouth, but like I thought there was
yeah,
definitely a bit of confusion or lack of clarity about what he was expecting as well. So it's not unique to just like your experience, but
yeah, definitely. You know, I'll let John speak for himself, but bottom line is I want to make sure that for anybody watching any video about Chao Torres or Caio Torres, or is just to be aware that at the end of the day, it's a cemented shoe, and if you like the design of the uppers and you're okay paying the price that he puts out there, then fine, go for it. You're going to get a pretty shoe that's cemented that he says can be resold. I'm not so sure, but at the end of the day, I think it's important to put out actual,
yeah,
truthful information out there.
yeah.
That's sort of the bottom line. But
Yeah, and we can wrap it up. I would say Antonio asked you one question. He said, "When you come across this stuff, does it make you want to stick to the makers that you're already in love with?"
um, yes, is the quick story. I have several makers that I obviously adore. Not all of them are like some people have asked me, does it make you want to stick with like Edward Green or Gatian and Gerling or
Yeah,
something like that, like the really big house brand names? And no, like for me, like my favorite makers are Antonio Macariello, Winston Shoemaker, um, Carmina to some degree, but more at the entry point.
yeah,
There's a small number of people, Hephaestus. There's a small group of people, but I think for me, I would more likely stick with those brands for like, particularly Winston, because I have a great relationship with Winston, and Antonio, same thing. Because if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I want to make sure that I'm getting a product that is backed by their level of skill and
yeah,
craftsmanship, which is part of the romance in buying these shoes, is understanding what goes into this. And I would probably stick with them. And if I am trying a new brand, I'm going to be very, very explicit
diligent
about
about
what it is that I'm looking for, and that's the lesson I learned the
yeah,
hard way.
yeah. That's
So
all right.
okay,
I mean, well, I say it's all right. I wasn't the one that
it's
experienced it,
okay.
but
It's okay. It's a first world problem, at the
yeah,
end of the day for me. So it's
yeah.
all right. It's life.
Well,
I'll live. Survive.
I'll let you go. I know you got dogs and got friends coming over, so
Okay.
we'll wrap it up there. I'll get the other video posted where we talk about
Yeah.
Alden and Rose Anvil, and
Yep.
yeah, hope everyone's doing well. We'll catch you later this weekend.
Sounds
Thanks,
good,
Ashram.
everybody. Have a good one.
See
Yep.
ya.
See ya.